Hey guys, name's Paul. I'm a woodworker. I've been a woodworker for 30 years plus, probably a lot more. Today I'm going to show you how to wipe on polyurethane. I'm a brush guy. First off, let me just say that my first video is on brushing, but there are certain situations where it's difficult to brush on polyurethane. I like a brush because it requires fewer coats. It's a lot neater because you have a handle and you have a lot better control. But brushing isn't practical. Think about if you're doing spindles on a chair, the legs of your chair, railings, different things where there's tight, round, cylindrical, spindly surfaces. It isn't practical. Think about doing this Windsor chair, which I'm about to refinish, and trying to get all those little spindles with a brush. It's practically impossible. So I'm going to show you how to make a wipe on poly. This video is all about it. It'll go into detail, so be patient. I'm going to give you not only how to make the poly and not how to apply it, but how to prep your surfaces and how to get everything ready, and then how to finish it up. So the other thing, wipe on poly, I'm going to show you how to make wipe on poly. Buying wipe on poly is about 6 times more expensive. And the other thing is, if you're brushing part of your project and you're wiping part of your project, the two surfaces won't match because they're different polyurethanes and different products. So by using the same poly, not only is it cheaper, but it will match. Okay, let's get going. I'm going to start off with what you're going to need to get this project rolling. We're going to need some things. Obviously, we're going to need polyurethane. So we want to bring that into the picture. You're going to need something to thin it. This happens to be paint thinner, but you can use turpentine. You can use mineral spirits. If you're in one of those areas where they don't allow volatile organic chemicals, so what they've done is they've taken a lot of the chemical gases that escape into the air. They've taken them out. You can use acetone. Acetone works fine. You just have to mix it a lot better. It's a lot harder to mix than one of the 3 turpentine, paint thinner, or mineral spirits. You're going to need gloves because we're going to be contacting the mineral spirits directly. Because you're going to be using a rag. I recommend a good lint-free rag. A t-shirt would work fine, but you can buy rags at your local hardware store. In between coats, what we're going to do is what's going to happen is the grain's going to raise, so we're going to need something to remove the grain, to sand between coats. Sandpaper's a little brittle and it's a little tough to work with. You can use an abrasive pad. You want an ultrafine abrasive pad. I like steel wool. Steel wool is very malleable, and it conforms to all different shapes and sizes. I use a 0000, so that's 40 type steel wool. We will also need, we're going to need some tack cloth. And you'll need, if you don't have an air compressor, you'll need a reasonably good vacuum cleaner. To make sure that you get rid of all the dust. Dust is a woodworker's worst enemy. So, and we'll be in between each coat. It'll take a few coats. In between each coats, we need to do a very light sanding to remove any grain rays and any dust nibs, etc. So, okay, let me get set up. Okay, the first step is we want to prepare our surface. So I'm going to be using a 120 grit sandpaper. I'm not sure which way is up or which way is down. And we're going to take it down. It doesn't require real heavy sanding, just a real light sanding. What I want to make sure is that the surface is smooth. And then I'm going to move up. Let's see, where is it? 120. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm going to move to a 180 grit sandpaper. I'm going to stop at 180. When you polyurethane, what happens is sandpaper puts scratches in the wood. And every time you go to a higher grit sandpaper, which is actually a finer sandpaper, you remove the scratches from the previous sandpaper. So I went from a 120 which left not real deep, but deeper scratches. And then I went to a 180, which is removing most of those scratches. And again, it's kind of feel. You kind of feel it. It feels nice and smooth. Again, for stain, for polyurethane, for lacquer, for shellac, you can stop at a 180 grit. The polyurethane, the lacquer or the shellac, which are top coatings, they're not penetrating finishes, they just lay right on top of the surface, will actually fill the minor scratches that's left behind by a 180 grit sandpaper. So you can stop at 180. When I apply my first coat of polyurethane, I'm going to let it dry overnight, and then I'm going to sand. I'm going to go to a 220 grit sandpaper. Just put some scratches in there. I'm going to go to a 220 grit sandpaper, and I'll sand with a 220. And again, just kind of feel it. Okay, that's it. It's not a heavy sanding. It's a very light sanding. I'm not ready. I was going to say I'm ready. I'm ready for the next coat, but I got to get my air compressor, so I'm going to come back in just a sec. Dust is a woodworker's worst enemy. Dust will get onto your surface and it'll create dust nibs, so the surface won't feel smooth. So we want to get out the dust. I'm going to use an air compressor to blow it off, but you can use a vacuum cleaner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to follow up with tack cloth. Tack cloth, you can buy this at any home center, hardware store, any place. It's cheap. It's cheesecloth with a little tacky substance on it, and what the tacky substance does is it draws any dust that might be left behind. So, okay, bear with me. It'll get loud for a second. Okay, I had to wait for the air compressor to turn off because it was too loud. This is tack cloth. Again, it's just like a cheesecloth, and it's got a little sticky substance on it. Not real sticky. You don't want to rub. You're not polishing with the tack cloth. What you're just going to do is just do a quick once over, and we're going to try to see if there's any dust on it, okay? I'm not pressing down on this. I'm just doing it very lightly, and I want to try to get any dust that might be left behind that the air compressor didn't get or your vacuum cleaner didn't get. So, again, notice that I'm not really rubbing it in, okay? Not much. You know, sometimes you can see the dust, but there really wasn't anything. Okay, next step is let's mix up a batch of polyurethane. Oh, by the way, just a quick tip, tack cloth will last you forever. So what I do is I put it in a plastic bag. I kind of try to squeeze all the air out of it. I seal the bag, and then I put it in my paint drawer, or I hang it so that you have it for next time. One piece of tack cloth will last you a long time. Okay, so I've got our polyurethane, and I'm going to mix up a batch. This is an oil-based polyurethane, so what I'm going to do is mix it at a ratio of 3 to 1. I'm only doing that small spindle as a sample, so I'm not going to mix up a whole bunch. You might want to mix up more. The key with mixing polyurethane is you never shake the can. What we don't want to do is polyurethane causes bubbles, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to create bubbles. So you can see that the can is pretty clear. There's no bubbles in it. So rather than shake it up and create bubbles, I'm just going to mix it up. I'm going to stir it. I must have used this fairly recently because normally on the bottom you'll see clumps of stuff, and you can even feel it. This polyurethane is already pretty well mixed. So very gently. No rapid movements. You can see that. I think you can see that there's no bubbles happening. I'm just stirring. I'm not violently shaking. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty well mixed, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Again, if I'm brushing this, I'm not rubbing the brush on this side. I'm not rubbing the mixing stick on this side. I'm just letting it drip off. I don't want to do anything to violently shake it. Okay, a mixing cup. This is a dollar store little mixing cup. Works great. Throwaway kind of a thing. I'll use it a few times. Little shot glass from Bahama Breeze. Where is it? Are you there? Oh, there it is. Little shot glass from Bahama Breeze. I'm going to mix this at 50-50. So I'm going to do 1, 2. Okay, again, you know, I'm not doing a big area, so I'm not going to mix a lot. Okay, put that on this side. I'm going to use paint thinner. You can, for oil base, you can use paint thinner. You can use mineral spirits. You can use turpentine. If you're in one of those areas where you can't have a volatile organic chemicals, so those 3 would probably be outlawed in your area, you can use acetone. It's not my favorite. It's not the best. Acetone is hard to get a good mix of acetone and poly, but it's not impossible. Okay, so there's 1. Notice I kind of gently poured it. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. My wife calls me a bull in a china shop, but and there's 2. Now, listen to this and listen carefully. If you're using a water-based finish, I don't take it to 50-50. That dilutes it a little bit too much. Water-based isn't as thick and syrupy as oil-based polyurethane, so I do it 3 parts polyurethane to 1 part water. It's not mineral spirits, it's not turpentine, it's not acetone, it's not paint thinner, it's water. I prefer not to use well water. Well water sometimes has strong mineral content and sometimes particles in it. So I would, if you're on a well, I would use distilled water. If you're on a city with a clean water supply, you'd be okay. All right. So again, gently mix the 2 together. You'll be able to see an even coloration when the 2 are combined. Now, if this is acetone, it's going to take you about 4 to 5 times longer than I've just done. It's not terrible, but it doesn't mix as well. Okay, so this polyurethane is ready for application. So I'm going to put it on the side, and we'll get the next step set up. Okay, lint-free rag. These are available at your hardware store. They're available at your home centers. It could be an old t-shirt. Just make sure it's lint-free, because what we don't want to be doing is putting lint on it, on anything. So take one of those, and you can soak it and wipe it like this. That's the nice part. You can take and fold it up into kind of a ball and apply it like that. Whatever way you prefer is fine. That's the nice part about using a rag versus using a brush. Think about it. If I were using a brush on this surface, what would happen is the brush is too big, and so a lot of the polyurethane would drip around the sides, etc. So this makes it easy, and convenient. I don't like this for big areas. Flat surfaces, I would rather use a brush. You have better control with a brush. You can apply it a little thicker so that it's not so that you don't need as many coats. This will take, well, a spindle isn't going to take that many. Probably 3 or 4 coats is all I'll need. Okay, so you just want to soak the rag. Let it drip out. Don't shake it. Don't squeeze it. Don't do anything that would introduce air into it. Just let it shake out, and then just gentle back and forth motions. All right, now when you first dip polyurethane, the rag in there, there's going to be a lot of material. So I can do the whole spindle because when I put it down, it doesn't touch the table. Parts that touch the table, I'm not going to want to do this way. All right. Now, see, here already is a problem because I can't really get in there with a flat rag. So what I'm going to have to do is kind of shape the rag to the area. Okay, and again, I can do all the way around because when I set it down, it's not going to touch the table. I'm going to flip this around because I'm right-handed. Same here, little dip. Let it drip out. Don't put a lot on because the key to a good polyurethane finish is it's called lay it on thin. I was taught that by an old woodworker early in my woodworking days. The thinner the top coat, if you're using a like polyurethane lacquer shellac, the thinner the better. Okay, so for the most part, that's done. Here's what I'm going to do though. It's called feathering, or at least I call it feathering. Some may argue with it. But I'm going to take the dry part of the rag, and I'm just going to give it a quick once over. Because what I want to do is I want to take off any excess polyurethane that may be laying there that might cause me issues later on with bubbling, puddling, running, etc. Okay? Now let's do this part. And because I can't lay it down, I'll hold it upright. I need a little more polyurethane on there. Again, not a lot. You want it thin. The thinner the better. We've done two things so far. We've thinned the polyurethane because it was full strength. Now we're half strength, and we're applying it in very thin coats. That's laying it on thin. If you lay it on thick, two things happen. First is you have a chance for bubbling, puddling, and running. That's it. We're done. And second, nope, I just brain fart. Just drew a blank. Oh, second is the thicker if you put on real thick coats of polyurethane, when it dries, it tends to look plasticky rather than natural. This, when it's dry, will look very natural. You won't even be able to tell. The secret of a good finish is that you can't tell there's a finish on it, so it just enhances the beauty of the wood. That's done. This needs to dry overnight. The manufacturer said I could put another coat on within 4 hours. The problem with that is if I don't know if there's flaws in this or not. I mean, there might be. I can't see any bubbles, but there might be bubbles that pop up. There might be there might be dust nibs in there that I can't see. Also, when you put the first coat on, what it'll do is it'll raise the grain. Grain raise is kind of like after you get a haircut and then you go to the barber and you shampoo your hair, you get all those like split ends, the fuzzy. Wood is fibers, just like hair fibers, and the ends of them are somewhere in the wood, and when you wet them, they pop up. So what we're going to have to do is do a very light sanding. But I won't use sandpaper anymore now. What I'll do is I'll switch to either an abrasive pad or steel wool. Okay, that's it. This is done. I'm going to set it on the side so to allow it to dry overnight. I'll come back and I'll see you tomorrow. The rag, by the way, disposable. That's nice. The polyurethane, here's what you should do. Hold on, let me. We eat a lot of yogurt in the house, so I always keep these. They're great. They're throwaways. And what I'll do is I'll pour my polyurethane in there. Wow, am I going to have tons of this? I didn't need quite this much. I'll pour my polyurethane in there. I'll seal it. And it'll be ready for me tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day. Okay, that's it. I'm going to clean up my equipment. We're done for the day. See you tomorrow. Oh, a quick, by the way, while I'm cleaning this up. That rag that we use, I would throw it in an outside container. This is potentially flammable, so you don't want to start a fire. So dispose of your rags properly. An outside container is the best bet. Okay, see you tomorrow. Morning, guys. It's the next day, and we're ready to do a little sanding. I'm going to show you a board that I had done. It's a little difficult to show you on the spindle because it's hard to get a close-up and get it thin, but I'll show you a piece of wood that I actually polyurethane, and I want to show you the grain raise. You can see the board here. It's pretty hard to tell. Really, it is hard to tell grain raise, but you can definitely feel it. It'll feel fuzzy. But I'll do a close-up so that you can actually see the raised grain. Again, grain raise is like split ends in hair, so it pops out. Okay, so we have a choice. As I indicated, we can either use steel wool or we can use a like a Scotch pad. This the steel wool is 0000, so it's 4 zeros. It's a very fine steel wool. The Scotch pad is an extra fine pad, so it's analogous to about a 180 grit. And sanding's going to be real quick and real light. I like the steel wool. I like the steel wool because it's malleable. It forms to the shape of the spindle. So that's it. I mean, that's done. Okay, so you can see how quick and easy the sanding has to be. We need to get the grain raised down, and we also need to roughen the surface a little bit for the next coat of polyurethane. Now, the reason I let it dry overnight rather than apply it is I want to be able to feel the surface. I want to be able to inspect it visually. I'll put it in different lights and different angles, so I can see if there's any flaws in it. I also want to be able to feel it. I want to feel if it's got to be smooth. I want to, your surface coat is only as good as the wood underneath it. So the amount of preparation that you put into your piece is important for the polyurethane to get a really nice finish. Okay, that's it. I mean, that was pretty quick. I mean, just it wraps around nice, and just that's it. I mean, you're done, and you can feel it. I mean, the popped grains, and there's no dust nibs in it, so it's ready. Actually, it's not quite ready. What I'll do is I'll at this point you could use tack cloth. But you could also, if you're using oil-based poly, just take a paper towel, dampen it a little bit with mineral spirits, and wipe it down with mineral spirits. If you're using water-based poly, take the paper towel, dampen it with water, and wipe it down. And that'll just get all the dust off of it. But we got to get the dust off. Little sanding dust, little polyurethane dust should be on this. Okay, I'm going to get ready, and we'll put on our next coat. Okay, so we stored our polyurethane in our yogurt container, and I'm just going to give it a real gentle mix. It shouldn't be separated. I mean, not overnight, but we'll give it a gentle mix. Let it drip off. Wipe it off. We'll put that on the side. Get rid of that. Okay, we're going to, same way, we're just going to take our rag. We're going to fold it a couple times. And then ball it up into a handy applicator. Dip it. And wipe. Easy peasy. Again, a brush wouldn't be practical on this, so this is where wiping comes in handy. Now, I don't know if you can see that on video, but that's pretty thick. So I'm going to take a dry part of the rag, and I'm just going to wipe some of it off. I just want it to be a little bit wet. This is... it's not how it's lay it on thin. You don't want to put thick coats on it. If you want your finish not to look plasticky, we're gonna use very, very thin coats. Okay. All you want to do is kind of dampen the surface. Okay, and then wipe. That's it. It's done. The second coat, the third coat, the fourth coat, they're all the same. We'll let this dry overnight. Spindles should be 3 to 4 coats because don't forget the polyurethane has been thinned to a pretty fine level, so we're going to need a couple extra coats. So I'll let it dry overnight. I'll do my little sanding. I'll do that a couple times. And then the last coat, the difference is between the last coat is you don't sand the last coat. And what I'll do is I'm not going to show you the next coat because it's really the same procedure, but I'll show you the finished project. So, okay, stay tuned. Hey guys, this is the final. This is a gloss finish, but yet it doesn't jump out at you and say, look at me, I look like plastic. The object of a good finish is you don't know there's a finish on it. You know you've been successful. I want to show you compared to this. This is a polyurethane that I put on full strength for demonstration purposes. it doesn't look, to me, it doesn't look good. It looks plasticky. You can tell there's a finish on it. It doesn't look, it doesn't feel right compared to this. So lay it on thin. That's the rule. If you learned something, please like my video. If you'd like to hear more, please subscribe. Happy woodworking.